It was a chilly autumn night, and the winding roads through the forest seemed endless. Jenna had been driving for hours, the dark canopy of trees above her forming a tunnel that stretched on into oblivion. The only sounds were the hum of the engine and the rhythmic thump of the tires on the uneven asphalt. Her eyes were heavy, the fatigue of a long day weighing on her, but she was determined to make it home before midnight. She glanced at the clock on the dashboard. 11:43 p.m. Not much longer now, she told herself, trying to shake off the drowsiness. The radio played softly, but even the cheerful tunes of old pop songs couldn't dispel the eerie feeling that had settled over her. The forest seemed to press in closer, the trees looming like silent sentinels, their bare branches clawing at the sky. Suddenly her headlights flickered. Jenna's heart skipped a beat as the darkness outside seemed to swallow the light. She slowed down, gripping the steering wheel tightly, willing the lights to stay on. They flickered again, then went out completely, plunging her into darkness. Panic surged through her. She pulled over to the side of the road, the gravel crunching under her tires. Taking a deep breath, she fumbled for her phone, hoping for some light, but the screen remained black. Dead battery. Of course, she thought, her hands trembling. She was stranded in the middle of nowhere, alone in the dark. She opened the car door, stepping out into the cold night air. The forest was unnervingly silent, not even the usual chirping of crickets to break the stillness. Jenna popped the hood, hoping it was just a loose wire, but she had no idea what she was looking at. Her breaths came in shallow gasps, her mind racing with possibilities. As she stood there, she heard it, a soft rustling sound from the woods. She froze, straining to hear. The sound grew louder, closer. Her heart pounded in her chest as she scanned the darkness, trying to see what was out there. Then she saw it, two glowing eyes staring at her from the shadows. Fear paralyzed her. The eyes were too high off the ground to belong to any animal she knew. She could see the outline of a figure, tall and gaunt, standing just beyond the tree line. Jenna's mind raced. She fumbled back into the car, locking the doors and praying for the lights to come back on. The figure didn't move, just stood there, watching. Minutes felt like hours. She glanced at the clock again, 11:57 p.m. The figure was still there, unmoving. She couldn't take it anymore. Jenna tried the ignition again, and miraculously the engine roared to life. The headlights blazed back on, and the figure was gone, as if it had never been there. She didn't waste another second. Jenna slammed on the gas, speeding down the road, her eyes darting to the rearview mirror. There was nothing but darkness behind her. She forced herself to keep her eyes on the road, the fear still clawing at her insides. As she approached a bend in the road, she saw something up ahead. A car, flipped over on its roof, blocking her path. Her blood ran cold. She slowed down, dread filling her. There was no way around it. She would have to get out again. Jenna stopped the car, leaving the engine running this time, and stepped out into the night. The wrecked car looked like it had been there for years, rusted and overgrown with vines. She cautiously approached, her eyes scanning the shadows. Then she saw it, a figure lying on the ground next to the car, motionless. Jenna's heart raced as she knelt down, reaching out a trembling hand. The figure's eyes snapped open, and she stumbled back, a scream caught in her throat. It was the same eyes she had seen in the woods, glowing with an unnatural light. The figure stood up, its movements jerky and unnatural. Jenna backed away, tripping over her own feet. She scrambled to her car, but before she could reach it, the figure was there, blocking her path. It leaned in close, its breath cold against her skin. "You're not supposed to be here," it whispered, its voice a rasping hiss. Jenna's vision blurred, her mind a whirlwind of terror. When she awoke, she was back in her car, parked on the side of the road. The clock read 1 a.m. Everything was as it had been, except for one thing, a deep scratch mark on her car door, like the mark of a giant claw. She didn't question it. Jenna started the car and drove, not daring to look back. The road seemed shorter now, the forest less menacing. She reached her home just after 1 a.m., collapsing into bed, her mind racing. She never drove that road at night again, and every year, on that same night, she found a single scratch mark on her car door, a reminder of the figure in the woods and the terror she had barely escaped.